Hey friend, welcome back to the Energized Hairdresser. I'm Ashley Jo Gillen, hairdresser, health coach, and your biggest fan behind the chair. This podcast is where we talk about hair, home, and health because you deserve to thrive in all three. Pull up a chair and let's talk. Hello and welcome back to the Energized Hairdresser. Okay, so this week, this topic came straight from the comments on my Instagram post, and it's a very relevant slash interesting topic we're going to dive into today. I'm very excited about it. And it's one of those questions that's kind of dripping with a little bit of sarcasm, but honestly, it's pretty logical. And the question is, how do you even afford to slow down? And even like saying that out loud to a hairdresser, you kind of laugh. It's almost as funny as like suggesting to go on a walk after you've worked a 10-hour day. But I'm saying you should be able to go on a walk after a 10-hour day. So today we're sitting in that question. We're not going to skip past it. We're going to just sit with it. So how do you actually take time off? How do you even afford to slow down? That's what we're gonna dive into it, and I'm here for it because let's just say it's logical, right? So slowing down or taking a day off does not mean taking a mental health day, like it might mean for someone who is on a salary. It means no clients in the chair. It means no income that day. It means referring those clients out to someone else. It means probably feeling guilty for not going to work. So when someone asks, like, how do you afford to slow down? They're not being dramatic. It's just like, how do you do the actual math? Like, you get paid per service. There's no safety net, like sick day PTO. That's like, fair. That's a fair question. So with that being said, I want to, like some of you may have heard like my story, but when I was in that season of I was just exhausted and I physically couldn't do the job. So this is what I did. Now, I'm not saying that what I did is the right thing. And looking back to what would be a better solution is what we're going to kind of bridge the two together. And also too, I think it's fascinating to be able to look at not doing the best thing and going, yeah, that probably wasn't the best solution, but it was a solution nonetheless. Right? So what my season looked like, because I didn't have like a smart answer to this question. Like I didn't sit out, I didn't do the math, I didn't come up with a plan. No, what happened was I was so physically exhausted that my body just stopped letting me work past what I had already scheduled. Or I was bare bones. Like that was my whole strategy. And that's not really a strategy. Like I just physically couldn't work more. I will never forget the feeling of blow drying hair and like, was I gonna like pass out? Was I gonna like fall down? Like I really couldn't even stand while blow drying hair. I had to sometimes use a stool and I'm like, man, I know like I just had a baby and I shouldn't feel like this, but whew, okay. So that was in the season when I got diagnosed with my autoimmune disease. But then looking back, I know it was survival. I saw it. Well, my baby is like 6 months old. We're building a house. My stuff is everywhere. Of course, I'm exhausted. Of course, this is like going to be really hard. But I just didn't know something was actually wrong. And, also too, this was like 2 years after COVID. So COVID was relatively still there. And I remember like letting appointments go. There was at one point in time, one of my children was diagnosed with COVID and I had to reschedule appointments and they were still in public school at the time, and just with how that whole thing, it was just, I like didn't get people called back. And I still think about it to this day, but it's like, well, that was, don't do that. Because when you're a solo entrepreneur, which I'm guessing that most of us are, not rescheduling them is like, I mean, learning the capacity of business. This is what I would love to have like AI do the strategy for is if you could plug in because I've asked AI to like say what's the number of appointments you need to fill the hours of your book. But you need to have a little bit more concrete of a prompt in there of like, okay, in 1 month's time, I work 4 days a week. These are my salon hours. In that time, I see 30 minute appointments, 17 3-hour appointments, and 27 2-hour appointments or whatever. How many clients do I need to fill my book for 12 months? Because when you could actually look like, how many people do you actually need to fill your book? I bet we would be shocked. Maybe I should do that right now. I'm going to take this transcript and I'm going to do that. So when you're in a season where you're like, how do I afford to slow down? Like, we need to kind of almost reframe this question. So what I want you to sit with is, like I didn't slow down. My body did the slowing down for me. And there was a massive difference in those two things. Because when your body is making the decisions that like, I physically couldn't work anymore, like you don't get to choose those terms. You don't get to say, oh, okay, I'll just take like Friday off for a while. Your body says, no, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. We can't do this. Like even now, my boys will still say, man, mom, I remember coming home and you were just asleep. I was, if I wasn't, if I wasn't working, I was sleeping. If I wasn't, I remember one time I fell asleep at a stoplight. Like I went to go, like I had to drive. I live in a childcare desert. Like there's not enough childcare, like there's not enough childcare facilities for the amount of workers that are around, which I'm curious if other people have that. Like at one point in time, my town was on the news, right? So when I had to take my baby to my friend who it was like 35 minutes away for me to drive there. It's almost like it was like a triangle from like where our camper was to where the salon was. So it's like, well, I'll drive over here to Lebanon and then I'll drive back over to like Darlington where my salon was. And I remember on my way there one time I like fell asleep at a stoplight. Someone had to like honk their horn. That is not good. Do not be like me. Because like when your body is making the decisions and you don't get to choose those terms, you don't get to say, okay, I'll just take Fridays off for a while. Your body says, nope, we're done. Deal with it now on my timeline. So maybe the real answer is, how do I afford to slow down? You can't afford not to, because your body's going to cash in on what it needs either way. It just decides when, and you get to decide like how much. So here's what I want to get to next, because the part of this is like, we're only human. We only have 24 hours in a day. So if you're feeling like like dog pile and you're so physically depleted that you can barely do the job that people are paying for, I want you to ask yourself, how fair is that? Because I'm sure you might make $50 off a haircut, but if that $50 is from a place of value and giving, is it giving like quality versus the $50 that comes from a place of running on empty or rushing or getting them in? The client still gets a haircut either way. The money still lands in your bank account, but on paper, it looks the same, but it's not. When you're coming from a place of empty, depleted you is doing a job, but full you is doing the work. Like you need to have the mental and physical capacity to do the work that you're proud of. Those two things are not the same transaction, even if they cost you the same, like $50. And if there's a part of this episode that I would love for you to have like land, this isn't about the client, this is about you. Because in that season, I wasn't shortchanging my clients. Like appointments still got covered. I was shortchanging myself. Like I was trading one thing I can't get back, my health, my body, my capacity, for work that didn't do anything. Like, I mean, I was like, you're making money, but are you? Because now you have like medical bills. So before you ask, like, how do I afford to slow down? I want you to ask yourself, what full speed is actually costing you? Because odds are you already know the answer. You're just scared. Maybe we're scared to disappoint people. Maybe we're scared to actually say it out loud. And look, I'm not here telling you to blow up your schedule tomorrow or quit doing hair altogether. Don't do that. We're in a hair shortage. I'm just saying maybe it's time to step back and look at what you really actually need to perform. So I'm like, I'm not here telling you to like blow up your entire schedule or quit behind the chair unless you really want to. And then we have an exit strategy. That's not what I'm saying. But like, and I don't do like the wellness like fantasy bit, but there are some real practical things that you can start doing. And a lot of it comes down to getting honest with your numbers. Are you actually profitable? Or are you just doing hair because you do hair? Do you know how much money it costs to run your salon each day? And if you don't, it's simply you add up all of your fixed expenses. So your rent, your insurance, your cell phone, what else? Your internet, maybe all of your subscriptions that you have. And then you divide that by the days worked. So let's just say all that comes to $27. All right. Well, then $27 divided by your average client count per day. Let's just say it's 7. No, I should probably have made it all of these. Let's just say you need $25 a day and you see 5 clients a day. Well, each client, you need to make at least $5 to cover just the cost of opening up your door. Well, okay. Then if you want to have your hourly rates be, $25 an hour. Okay. So now we're at 35 or 30. Um, and I know that there's probably better strategies for this. I'm just winging it here. But and then you have your color cost. So what is a highlight? How much does it cost for you to mix up a bowl per highlight, including gloves and foils? How much is a root color? How much is a full color? How much is a root color plus toner plus this plus that? And it's literally saying, this is what I need to break even. Or are you working yourself into the ground because you're afraid of letting people down? Or do you work so much? Do you have a rhythm of working where you are slow 1 or 2 weeks and then people call to get in and then you cram them in for 2 weeks and then you have a slow cram. Like those are patterns that we can adjust. And these are two very different problems that they need different fixes. Like you need to know which lane you're in. So go look at your price list. Are you even charging what's on it? Or are we charging based on emotions and feelings? And I will be very transparent with you. Pricing is the hardest part of my job. And I am very proud of myself for overcoming that, but I still have a lot of work to do. So I am not coming from like, well, it's $350 for this highlight. I would shit my pants if I had to charge like I just I do not like charging people money. But why else am I doing this? And I could do a whole money episode and I will because I think that that's fantastic. I mean, I absolutely should. Because you have to ask yourself if you are you even charging what your price is? Because if we're not, that's like a fear of wearing like it's just your fear of doing business. And I think when it comes to pricing, like everyone wants to know just like you want to spend what you want to spend, but you just want to know what you're spending, So, print your price list off, have it sitting there. When someone books something, say it out loud. Hey, this service is going to cost $215 for you today. Or this is going to start at $215 because, and I have 2 bowls of bleach, lightener, whatever, included in this bowl. You have an abundance of hair, which you probably know. I will probably have to mix up an additional bowl and that's $15, and just let them know that. And they'll say, okay, if that doesn't work for them, because you don't want a client sitting in your chair the entire time going, man, how much is this going to charge? What's this going to be like? Like what's this going to be? So you don't want that price anxiety just living there. You want it to be like out. in the open. Okay. So you could print off that price list to just really say, hey, this is what it is. Also, too, here's another piece. If you're booked for 2 hours and Becky wants something that's a 3 hour service, tell her, I'd love this look. I think it's so great. Let's get you booked for that properly next time. I think her name is Sammy Jones Hair. She is very good at saying she was booked for a partial. This is what a partial includes, and this is what we got time for today. People will understand that so much better when we give them boundaries. What they don't understand is what actually damages the relationship between people. And you could even just like start this to say, you know what? I'm entering my honesty era, and what you want, it just doesn't work. Now, I want you to hear this part. If Becky says she wants X and you only have 2 hours for her appointment, and what comes after that is your lunch break, you still only have 2 hours booked, because if you're a people pleaser, you're like, it's just my lunch. I can do it later. Nope, 2 hours. Your lunch is still your lunch. You need that time because future years going to want it. So, my friends, I'm not asking you to have this all figured out. Like I didn't. And I hope, my prayer is, through my failures or through my experiences, I can share better solutions for anyone who is struggling with their health, so you don't have to do this alone. If you are like, I don't know how to keep working, but I have to keep working, then we need to get real clear on what you're working for. So, what I'm asking you is that you don't want to wait for your body to do the math. You don't need to wait until you physically cannot work anymore. You're in the hospital for exhaustion to shift, okay? Because then it's a whole different pickle. We want to start working in prevention because we now know how physically demanding our job is. Physically, emotionally, mentally, and it's just as simple as everything else in our society has evolved, hair services has evolved too. I would love to create a basic like recipe index for, hairdressers to have a little bit of consistency. I know, like, we're artists, but like sometimes I'm like, I just want to do the thing. I just like, I don't want to, I don't want to be creative anymore. I want to know if I place those 15 foils at this location, it's going to give me dimension and it's going to look great. That's what I want to know. I want to work smarter, not harder. I think I just created stuff. Good thing I'm recording this. Okay. So I'd love to hear what you think about this. And if this is something it hits you close to home, I want you to come hang out with me in my schoolroom. I'm working behind the scenes on some major shifts in that room, but right now we're just hanging out. We're having conversations about, you know, snacks and energy and client help and so on and so forth. So this is exactly the kind of thing we get into each week, and our weekly Ask Me Anything. So I'd love to hear where you are at on this. There's a link down in the show notes for you to come check that out. So next week I will be off for a quick vacation, but I'll be back at the end of July. And let me tell you, that is the week before everyone goes back to school. And whew, I am, I know in 2 weeks time, that week is going to be, it'll be cooking. So I'm preparing for that. So I want you to start kind of looking at your books. It's also time to start thinking about, are you ready? It's also time to start thinking about the holidays. I shit you not. you know, because I mean, I'm coming at you on July 11th. Once school starts, September, I think from September to December, it's time to just book your regulars out the remainder of the year. It's not a plan. It's just time to start thinking about it. Like, when are you going to decorate for Christmas? What are you going to do for your clients? It's just time to start kind of thinking about it. Fall sports schedules are coming out. So it's like time to start getting those in your calendar. I just took it to a different direction, but I'm just saying, I do love a good forecast. And it's just, we don't need to be scrambling anymore for things that we know are going to always happen. So, great. If this episode is landed for you in any way, shape, or form, let's tell me about it. Sometimes I feel like my podcast is on an island, and I do it because I'm building discipline and I do it because I said I was gonna do a podcast, but I am currently learning how to bring my podcast into my quote content better because this is good. This is a good way for you guys to learn more information. So I'm here for it. All right. That's all I got for you this week, and I'll see you on the next one. Enjoy your day. I'm here for you.